You know, what's the one thing that instantly tells you if you're looking at amateur Java code or professional, clean code? It's not some crazy, complex algorithm. Nope. It's way simpler. Naming conventions. If you stick with me for a few minutes, I'm going to show you how to take your code from a confusing mess to something that's clean, professional, and honestly, just a joy to work with, all by following a few simple rules. So here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll talk about why this stuff actually matters so much. Then, we'll dive into Java's favorite style, CamelCase. After that, we'll get into the nitty-gritty rules for everything, put your new skills to the test with a quick quiz, and then wrap it all up with a handy little cheat sheet you'll definitely want to save. All right, let's start with the big question. Why should you even care about this? Well, it all comes down to one single, super important word: readability. You've got to remember, you're not just writing code for a computer to understand. You're writing it for other people, and maybe most importantly, you're writing it for your future self, who's going to have to look at this code in 6 months and try to figure out what on earth you were thinking. Okay, just look at these two pieces of code. On the left, it's just a wall of lowercase letters. And on the right, it's structured. It's clean. Now, here's the thing. Both of these will probably run just fine. But which one would you rather be trying to debug at 2 in the morning? The one on the right? It's just instantly scannable and easier to understand, all because of some simple capitalization. That's the power we're talking about. This quote just says it all, really. Anybody can bang out some code that the computer understands. That's the easy part. The real skill, the mark of a true professional, is writing code that other humans can understand, not just today, but for years to come. So how do we actually achieve this in Java? Well, the standard way is a really simple and, I think, pretty elegant solution. It's time to meet the camel. The standard we use in Java is called CamelCase. And the rule is super simple. When you have a name made up of more than one word, you start the very first word with a lowercase letter, and then you capitalize the first letter of every single word that comes after it. No spaces, no underscores, none of that. And that's exactly where it gets its name. The capital letters that pop up in the middle of the name, like the M and the S right here, they look like the humps on a camel's back. It's a funny little visual, but it's what makes a name like showMyMarks so much easier to read at a glance than showMyMarks. Now, you might have seen other styles out there, like snakecase, which uses underscores. That's really common in other languages like Python. And here's a crucial point. Your Java code won't break if you use it. It's not a syntax error. But, and this is a big but, if you want to write code like a Java professional, code that other Java developers can immediately understand, you stick with CamelCase. It's the way we do things. Okay, so we know the main style is CamelCase, but it gets applied a little differently depending on what you're naming. You can think of this next part like learning the specific grammar rules for different parts of speech in your code. Let's start with the big building blocks, your classes and your interfaces. The rule here is dead simple. They always start with a capital letter. Think of them as the proper nouns of your program. So it's calculator, never calculator. And if it's got multiple words, like my data, every single word starts with a capital. Next up, we've got variables and methods. These are the action words and the nouns that do all the work. For these, we flip the script. They always start with a small letter, like int marks. And if you've got multiple words, like showMyMarks, this is where that classic CamelCase we just talked about really shines. Small letter to start, then humps for the rest. And finally, we have constants. These are the values that you set once and you never ever want them to change. And because they're so important and so fixed, they need to stand out. So the rule is you use all capital letters. And if you have multiple words, well, this is the one and only time that underscore, that snakecase style, is welcome in Java to separate words, like in my underscore data. All right, you've seen the rules. I think you've got this. Now for the fun part. Let's do a little pop quiz to see if you can tell what kind of code element you're looking at, just by its name. Ready? Let's go. Okay, first one. You're reading some code and you see the name age, all lowercase. Based only on that naming convention, what do you think it is? If you set a variable, you are absolutely right. It starts with a small letter, which is our big clue. Now, it could technically be a method, but since there are no parentheses around it or parentheses after it, we can be pretty sure it's a variable designed to hold some value. Nicely done. Okay, next up, you see this in the code, data, all caps. What does that scream at you? That is a constant. Yep, The all-cap styling is an immediate signal that this is a final value, one that shouldn't be changed anywhere else in the program. See? Easy. All right, last one. And this is a bit of a trick question, so think carefully. You see human with a capital H at the beginning and parentheses at the end. What is that? The answer is a constructor. Let's break down the clues here. That capital H tells us it's related to a class name, but the parentheses, RGO at the end, make it look like a method. When you see something that looks like a method, but it has the exact same name as a class, that is the class's constructor. It's the special method that's used to create new objects. Fantastic job on the quiz. Let's wrap things up by putting everything we just learned onto a single slide. Seriously, if you're studying for an exam or you just want a quick reminder you can pin up, this is the slide to screenshot. Think of it as your ultimate cheat sheet. And there you have it. It's this simple. For classes and interfaces, always start with a capital. For variables and methods, you start small and use CamelCase. And for constants, it's all caps with underscores to separate words. If you can remember just these 3 things, you are 90% of the way there. So you're now armed with the basic rules of professional Java style. And this isn't just about making your code look pretty. It's about craftsmanship. It's about writing code that you and your team can be proud of. So the only real question left is, how are you going to use this to make your next project an absolute masterpiece of readability?